Yo, what's going on, you guys? This is Day here, and I'm going to be giving you guys a New World Isle of the Night raid guide video. Now, with this video, I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going over all of the individual boss fights. I'm not going to really be going into detail about any of the puzzles in between the boss fights. Those are kind of not something that in a sense, they are pretty mechanically heavy, in a sense, but there's no drawbacks for dying or wiping or anything. You always can keep on running through those puzzles and trying to figure it out. Now, for the boss fights, though, this is where it really gets pretty much on a lot of people. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and go over certain things like what I'm doing and what the other people are doing, just so you guys can get an idea, as well as what the boss mechanics are also being done. Um, I'll also end up obviously telling you guys how we're all gemming. Some of us are also gemming kind of differently from each other. Specific roles are gemming differently for their specific things. And yeah, but we're going to go ahead and get right into it. Also, just a foreclosure for everybody or disclosure for everybody. Um, this is being recorded on my screen of YouTube because for some reason I have no idea how to actually get it to work. For some reason, my editing stuff isn't. It's just being weird. So I'm literally just recording straight from my YouTube video, but it'll probably make it a little easier as I can pause it and explain everything a little bit more into detail this way. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, for the first boss, which is going to be the Twin Jesters, everybody's just going to want to gem for Jaspers, which is full strike. And the reason why is because pretty much all of the damage you're taking is strike damage. Now, the main three roles that you want to have is two trappers and a shooter. Technically, you can have two shooters, but realistically, you need to make sure you do have at least one designated shooters and two designated trappers. The two trappers ideally would be two evade players, and they will have an ice gauntlet on as their offhand. The shooter can realistically be anyone, um, preferably not someone that can do a ton of damage, but so like maybe sort of shield DPS or the flex DPS, or even the healer. But then again, the healer needs to be there for void blading, or just an extra evade. It doesn't really matter. Just pick whoever. Honestly, you just gotta have one person as a shooter. So right here, let me go ahead and mute this in just a little bit. You're going to notice the two levers on left and right when I turn my screen around. So you're going to notice there's a lever on the left and there's a lever on the right. You're going to want to make sure you designate one ice gauntlet trapper on one and the other one on the other. Don't worry about the barrels. You can honestly just break the barrels. Obviously, someone in my group needed the barrels to proc Keenly Jagged, so I just left it alone. You're going to see a yellow glow in the back over there. That is a ballista bolt. Smack is the one that's grabbing it, and he's also is the other Ice Gauntlet user or trapper. So it's just both me and him. He's gonna grab it, and he's gonna end up loading it. Well, he doesn't load it, but he's gonna end up shooting the ballista during the stamp phase. So I'll once we get to that, I will obviously show it to you guys. So as soon as the boss drops, we go behind, which the back side of the boss is the purple side, not the white side. Purple side, you'll generally get almost 99.999% chance to crit on the back. I have seen some non-crits, but not during the DPSing like this, but in other phases. When he does that back slam as well, just keep in mind you can block it, flurry through it, or dodge it. Now, the mobs are spawning, but we're not worried about the mobs in the first 10% of his health. We just ignore that. But do keep in mind that he will consume them and then heal from it. So as you can see, he ended up healing almost half his health rather than keeping his health at full 1 bar. But we have enough DPS to just bring it back down and really not worry about it. Now, obviously, if you're going to do like a speed run or something, then you're going to want to probably end up killing the mobs that are spawning in on that first phase immediately. Now, one way to know, so I'm auto locking here because I just kept getting moved around a lot, especially since I'm playing as a blood build. But one thing to know is right here. So you can see in a second right here, the mobs are spawning. So if the mobs are spawning on one side or the other, then that means both sides are spawning. So since the mobs on the left is spawning, or I guess on my right is spawning, then I know that my mobs are also spawning. So you're going to see me leave, and I'm going to go set my ice shower closer to the edge right here. As you can see, it's going to touch close to the trees because sometimes there's been a few times before where they would just run kind of around it, like along the tree. So it's just better if you put it like this because they never go all the way around like this. I think it really depends on where the healer and the tank are located at, though. But as you see, they die immediately. And now that brute came from, I don't know where the brute actually came from, but normally if the brute is on its way, it can't die from the trap anyways. So you just gotta let your group know that a brute is coming so that way you can just dodge it. Now you can see another ballista spawned from the brute kill or whichever mob it was killed from. And someone, just pretty much anyone, needs to grab the ballista so they can preload it onto this ballista right there on our left, because I'm pretty sure every single ballista is actually preloaded, but after you shoot it you won't be able to. Now here again it's the same phase where he spawns 3 different clones and you have to just find the real one. You find the real one, you stam him, and everybody DPSs. Now right here he's going to teleport. The reason why we know where he's at, and I've gotten this question a lot, and I know Schmeck has also gotten this question a lot in his streams, is how do you know where the real clone is? But the reason why we know is because he still has debuffs and damage over time and dot effects on him. So we have bleeds, burns, and poison and rupture, etc., etc. So you can still see the actual like the dot effect on him right there. Now, if you don't know where he's at, you're gonna see that he has a different animation from every other jester. As you see, the other 3 jesters are crouching down with their hands pointing towards some other jester or some other place, while the main jester is actually standing up high, pointing as well. Now, right here, he says, "Can you think outside the box?" When he says, "Can you think outside the box?" those boxes that were on the ground, like this one, for example, he throws out a few of them. But what happens is, if you step within its area, within its circle, it's going to detonate, and it can actually, well, it'll stagger and do a decent amount of damage. So it's honestly easier if you have someone that can range and just hit the ones that's right next to you so nobody actually hits it by accident. They will pop up after a certain amount of time as well. So as you see, I end up leaving pretty early just to get to the mobs. Now I let the woodcutters go through because it takes way too long for the ghouls to come in or the carcasses, and those are the ones you want to make sure you kill. The axemen or whatever they're called, they don't really matter too much. And then on the left side, the Inagas spawn. I was trying to see if I can go in and hit the lever to kill them, but the Nagas spawn and they will hurt a lot. So if you are on the left side, if you're the left trapper, then you want to make sure you also get another DPS to come and help you kill them. Now I can see that one woodcutter is coming, which means all the other mobs are going to also be coming. So I end up leaving early. So right here as well, you can see right down here, he says, "Who's the lucky winner?" When he says that, he's going to teleport to a ranged player. So ranged being someone like myself because I'm too far from everybody else, or it could be Schmeck. So he ends up teleporting to Schmeck, and when he teleports to you, just hold block. As you can see, I'm over here holding block just in case if he was going to jump at me. And then I just sit and wait to hit my traps to kill the rest of the mobs, and then go back to doing DPS. And then we actually ended up doing quite a lot of damage here, and I think we actually got it wrong. I think we thought that it was going to be this one. I'm not entirely sure. I think it was a little late because it was 10 seconds. Yeah, so it was the wrong one. All of us went to the wrong one, and we're gonna all get blown up. But it's okay if you get hit once from the explosion because it's not gonna kill you. It's only gonna hit you for 6351. But if you let it happen again, then it's gonna hit you for 9,000 something. And then if it happens again for the fourth time, then it's gonna end up one shotting you. So obviously it got pretty hectic here. A lot of mobs, double brutes, and a lot of different mechanics happening. But honestly, once you know how to handle certain situations, certain mechanics, it's not that difficult anymore. And when he does that, you have some time to get out of that hex, and you could just DPS a little bit if you wanted to, or just literally just get out and not worry about it. Now, at the last 10% of his health, which is the last bar, he's going to end up phasing. If there are mobs, again, if there are mobs near him, um, they're going to heal him if he's phasing. But since there weren't any, he didn't heal anything at all. So we were able to actually just kill him pretty easily right here. You have 35 seconds to do DPS. And if you have high enough DPS, you can realistically kill him with one bar in about 10 seconds or less. And then if mobs spawn like this, you want to make sure your main tank taunts everything and then just pulls them away from the boss so that way they're not staggering any of the DPSs from DPSing. And we only had 2 seconds left, so we were obviously missing something there. Now, this is going to be the second boss. The second boss is pretty hectic in terms of mechanics and everything. So what we ended up doing was we have actually I think this is the wrong clip. I think this is the first attempt and I didn't put in the actual clear attempt. But anyways, the what you want to do is you want to make sure you have a main tank, which is tank DPS all, and then an off tank, which is who I am. I'm playing as the off tank. I'm using a sword and shield as my main tank weapon, and then I'm pretty sure I swapped to Greatsword. I used Greatsword so I can break the stamps faster, but I also ended up trying using Hatchet because of Divide Death, because there was just a lot of situations where it would come in clutch. Plus, having Berserk to have instant grit outside of using like grit ward pods definitely helps. But yeah, hold on. I'm just going to go ahead and stop the recording and then resume. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and look at the second boss. Now, this is the actual recording and not the last one. I was just showing you guys the last one was the wrong one. But this is the correct one. And yeah, we're just going to go ahead and get into it. So the team comp for this one is you're going to have your main tank, you're going to have an off tank. You're going to have a main healer and an off healer, and then the same format of DPSs. You need a spear, you need a buff bot, and then you need evade, and blood, and then you can have a flex player as well if you need. But for the main tank, they're going to aggro all three of those enemies, and then the off tank is going to just be on the archer. And then the main healer is going to be with the main tank, and then other healer will be with the off tank. I'm going to go ahead and explain the mechanics as we go through, just to make it a lot easier for everybody. Also, what you want to make sure you do with your gems is you want to have the, I think this is the right section. Yes, this is the correct section. All right. You want to make sure you have slash amulets or slash protection all around as a DPS and healer. So you want to get moonstones. If you're the tank, then personally for me as the off tank, I went with onyxes and slash amulet. If you're the main tank, you can also go with onyxes and then use an amulet to protect you from specific things that you think will actually do the most damage to you, because you are technically tanking and holding 3 mobs. You're also not going to have to worry about tanking the main boss. Only the off tank will. The off tank will have slash protection because, or slash amulet, because the main boss does primarily slash damage. The DPSs also can have about maybe 2 arcane gems so that they can so that they won't actually end up taking too big of a hit from the totems that drop, or the swords. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward a little bit. Now, as you can see, we are on the archer. Once the archer gets around to the letter H, C or H, they're going to actually run straight to the middle, and then they're going to do a mechanic. They do the rain of fire, and then we just try to run away. You want to make sure you have enough open space as the off tank. Do not run into the fire to DPS. You really don't need to. Everybody else is going to. Honestly, I don't like having everybody just on that side, just in case that the shield bearer actually aggroes onto one of them by accident. But the shield bearer is going to charge to the furthest person. So I tried to make sure I was the furthest, but realistically, it's just easier and better and safer if everybody is within the same radius of the off tank. So that way, whoever gets the shield icon above them of being charged, they're already there right next to the off tank. So you're gonna see this shield icon is above my head. I move over, and then I wait for him to turn around to walk back to the main tank to taunt. Do not taunt earlier than that. If you do that, then then the shield bearer is just gonna ignore your taunt and still walk to the main tank. So just wait till he's walking back and then taunt. So you want to make sure you break his stamina bar right here, so that way you can actually get some DPS out on him. And then you're going to do the same here. You're going to go ahead and break the stamina bar again before he goes to the center, but unfortunately we were unable to. Now that I think about it though, you probably don't need to actually break his stamina bar right away in the beginning. You could just do massive DPS, and then once he gets close, then make sure you break his stamina bar. So this mechanic right here is the in and out rings. It's always going to be safe right in the center, and then it's going to be safe on the outer layer of the center, and then safe in the center again, but not safe in the center anymore. You go out again, and then you go back in. Now you can also iframe it, as you've seen Shrek do. Obviously, if you're learning it, it's probably not worth doing that, and it's probably more worth just actually doing the mechanics. Now, you're going to go ahead and grab the next enemy. Doesn't matter whether it's the halberd or the sword guy. If it's the halberd that you grab next, then make sure you keep him on the outside. Do not bring him to the center, because if you do, his mechanic is he will pull everybody in and then slam. And when he does that, it's just almost unavoidable to take damage and die. So if you are on the outside, you get pulled still, but you won't die from the slam because you're too far from the slam. Also, something else that I wanted to mention is this part right here. He does spawn a prison right here. So this prison is a sleep prison. So if you walk into it, you end up falling asleep for about like 3 seconds. Now, if you have 300 dex or berserk though, then you can obviously just free yourself from that. And then the last part, the main tank brings the swordsman in. Whether you get the swordsman first or not, you always want to bring the swordsman in to the center first or immediately, because his mechanic is he's also going to go into the center and then have a some mechanic where he's actually going to detonate. And since you're already here, you can keep DPSing or break his stamina. We were able to just keep DPSing him and end up killing him right there or getting to 50%. Now the next phase, the main tank is going to taunt all of the enemies, including the archer if he can, so that way everybody, including the off tank, can hit the back of the archer. And then once I get aggro, and you'll know if you have aggro because the nameplate will turn red, once I have aggro, I end up going back to the front. Now you're going to see these new mechanics. So these swords in the air, they're going to form up and then drop down a pillar on everybody. These are what does arcane damage. Now, when they are on the ground, it's not that they do damage over time or anything, but they will make you slow. So it's just very good to kill these things because they will make you extremely slow over time, and they will also get a lot bigger over time. And the other the other thing to keep in mind is you're gonna have these things right here, this red box, the instability debuff. So everybody's gonna have one, and you'll notice it above your head. You don't really need to worry about it right now. It's something that you need to realize for later. So next, I go for the swordsman. This was a bit hectic because the shield bearer was doing a mechanic and I wasn't prepared for that. I ended up taking damage from the swordsman, and I tried to see if I can pop berserk and defy death, but unfortunately defy death did not proc. Well, it did, but it procced off from the swordsman killing me, so I got put into a 1-minute timer. But yeah, you want to try to get the swordsman's aggro and pull him away. And the reason why is because the swordsman is the one that moves around the most, so it's easier to just kill him first and then have the other two stack on top of him afterwards. So you want to make sure you are not rushing to do any of this. If you're rushing, I mean, especially as a learner, it's not going to be that great. You're not timed for this, so just take your time and try to get the swordsman because it's very important. So since I had both of them on me or the halberd, I just had the main tank taunt him off of me, and I ran straight to the swordsman, which is a good tech to also do. You can also wait for the swordsman to go into the center, so it's just a lot easier to get his aggro. And this shield guy is charging me right here. I pop berserk because I knew he was on his way, so I don't get dropped or knocked down. So I also bring the swordsman all the way at this location specifically because I want to get the enemies stacked on top of each other, right, kind of near the boss. And then also, the swordsman is pretty dangerous because he gets empower stacks as well every time he hits you, every time he hits the tank. So his empower, he went up to 10 empower stacks, and it can hurt quite a lot. So I end up getting the shield bearer, and I'm bringing him over to the swordsman. Now, when you're trying to stack them, make sure you have them kind of lined up a little bit behind the feet of the dead enemy, because they always fall forward when they die. So we stam him and we do a decent amount of DPS. We try to get him low but not kill him. Once he gets pretty close, like around 10-15% health, then everyone should probably stop trying to burst their DPS and let the off tank reposition. We got really lucky here that he charged the main tank, so that way it made it a lot easier for me as the off tank to reposition him and get him a little bit behind the feet of the swordsman. So now he's perfectly stacked on top of the swordsman, and then right here we have the interrupt Palatine guards, and you can see these torches light up purple. And not just that, but the crowns on our head have these spikes coming out, which means we have this instability damage buff. So with this instability damage buff, when the enemy is glowing like this, they're going to blow up, but we also do a ton of damage to them. So you can already see right here, he's already about half, he's at half health, and he just now got here. Now once you've stacked all of them, you're going to have the main tank over there, and he's going to taunt them, so he gives the beloved buff and all these other buffs, and the off tank is just going to be over here. Those enemies are going to start reviving, and you want to actually kill them in this first revive round instead of trying to let them come back. But you're going to get them killed, or you're going to kill them, and then once you do, everybody is going to come to the off tank and just start DPSing. The main tank doesn't really need to worry because all he has is the archer to worry about, and he just aggroes the archer. The main tank needs to aggro the archer, so that way they're not shooting directly at everybody else over here. Which means the main healer can actually just drop a sacred and a beacon on the main tank and run and start helping DPS. You're still going to get the flame, the rain of flame, or whatever it's called, flame arrows. When that happens, just run it away from the center. Unfortunately, one of our guys didn't realize, and it was a little too late, but it's fine because you can always just come back and wait for the fire to go away. Now there's going to be a mechanic happening soon where she's going to start teleporting around and hitting each individual person that has a crown. So right here you can see when she turns to a purple mist, she's going to start going to each person that has the crown on their head. And if you have a crown, well, realistically everybody just needs to scatter out like a bunch of cockroaches and pop a grit ward pot. So the number 3 on my hotbar, you need to make sure you have one of those. You need to use it in this phase because when she hits you with the first hit, it's going to stagger you. So if you use a grit ward pot or if you have stone form, she's not going to stagger you and you will be able to live. You are also able to dodge it, but I would just make sure you pop a grit ward pot and then dodge the other hits. Now, as you can see right here, we have a soaking mechanic. So it's always going to be on the last person that has the crown. So she's going to go to everyone that has a crown but for one person. That last person is the one that's going to have this mechanic. If that person does not soak with other people, if they don't soak with at the least, I think it's 3 or 4 people in total, then they're going to die instantly. It's just, I'm pretty sure minimum 4 people has to soak this. Because you cannot iframe it, you cannot repost it. There's nothing you can do to prevent this from one-shotting you. And now the mobs are respawning, and everybody goes back and starts to DPS them. But for the second respawn, which is this one, they don't actually kill them. They get them low enough to actually kill them during the instability phase. The interrupt instability phase. So now the main tank actually aggroes whichever one is still alive or whichever one is still going to be alive. Right here he should be. Yeah, so he actually goes and grabs them now. And the main healer goes with the main tank. So now it's just 8 people on the boss rather than 9 now. Now you do need to keep in mind you will also end up having the other mechanics like the rings, the in and out, or even the stam phase and other things. Now she's doing this phase again. So everybody just needs to scatter, pop a grit ward pot, dodge, and then she ends up stabbing me because I blocked her hits. But as a tank you can just block her hits, which is pretty nice. Now she does the soaking again. Everybody just needs to get close. If you are the main tank, just be at the edge. You do not need to be on everybody. Now, this is the instability right here. The reason why we got all of their health down to about 50% or 20%, is because of this. Because you only have 25 seconds to kill those enemies. So they're stacked on top of each other, and they're relatively low. And then after that, they need to kill the archer, because the archer is still the archer will now have the buff and will be at full health. So you want to make sure all the other enemies are low health during this phase, and then you can kill them, and then goes to the archer and kill them, or kill the archer. And there's not really anything you can do about it as the off tank, unfortunately. We did have 2 people out, so our DPS was a little less there. But again, because we had those 3 enemies at like 20% health, it made it a lot easier to do that phase. And then the main tank comes in and he just takes over the taunt, and so we have more bodies on the boss to DPS. And then I'm going to end up taking aggro in just a little bit, so that way he can go back. Oh, she does this again. But so that way the main tank can go back and aggro the boss, and I will have the boss's aggro. Another soaking. I have to wait until her taunt is done, because unfortunately she got taunted by the main tank a little earlier, so my taunt did nothing. So I had to go in and heavy attack her to get the aggro. And we were going to take her away to the edge, but we just continued to keep DPSing because they weren't alive yet. So we didn't want to waste the DPS time or uptime for the revive. But it's still definitely more safer to just go to the edge because of the hex. Now she's reviving them again, but instead of having the DPSs go to her or go to them, we had the main tank just aggro all of them, and we just stuck to the boss. And that's that for the second boss. So now we're going to go ahead and get into the third boss. So the third boss is pretty easy, but it's also pretty tricky. So what we ended up doing, instead of running straight to Thorpe, we actually start in the middle. But what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have 2 people become the light bearers. So they're the ones that's going to pretty much alternate the sword, the golden orb, or whatever you want to call it. What I did is we had 1 healer and the evade rapier. And as the evade rapier, I just ran aconite, but you can honestly just run a musket. It doesn't really matter. You can still, whatever ranged weapon, realistically, it would be the musket or the bow. But you would use one or the other to help kill the ghost, because that's pretty much your main priority, is to kill the ghosts while everybody else is DPSing. And then you're gonna, so this one does not require an off tank. You still need a main tank, obviously, but you will also have 2 healers. You're gonna have 1 healer alternating the orb with the evade rapier person, and then another healer with the group. But yeah, it's quite, there's quite a lot of things going on here, but that's pretty much how we ended up doing it. We still kept the comp all the same. We have a blood rapier, we have evade rapiers, we have a buff bot, we have a spear, and we have our tank and 2 healers. So that's pretty much it. But it is highly recommended that everybody has a ranged offhand outside of the main tank, because there are going to be a total of 6 ghosts spawning out, and each of them have different mechanics that they can do. If they reach to 4 shards, then they will detonate. If they can also spawn mobs as well, and they can do like these crescent waves, kind of like Ifrit in a sense. And then Thorpe also does buffs for the ghost as well. over time. But this fight honestly isn't too hard, especially compared to the second boss. So if you've cleared the second boss, you're more than likely going to end up clearing Thorpe. So the reason why we stand here is because the sword spawns right over there, and he always knocks us back, and it's just too close for him with the sword. You don't want him to get that sword buff either, because if he reaches that sword buff, he's going to just drop a bunch of holy swords on everyone. So what we ended up doing right here, as you can see, we have Med. So me and Med are the ones that are alternating it. So Med is just standing right in front of the boss, so it gives everybody, just everyone, enough DPS uptime on the boss while the orb is coming. Now Med just stays pretty much far away, but realistically after you intercepted the first orb, you can still stay in DPS because you have quite a while to actually, before he steals it from you. But after that first bar, then that's when you do not want to have the light bearers be near Thorpe. He's always going to try to go to the furthest person away, so just keep that in mind. Now, that red circle right there is going to be the arcane damage. So you don't really want to get touched by those. Which, by the way, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, as a DPS, pretty much everyone, not just the DPS, but just everyone should gem with sapphires. The two light bearers should gem with moonstones. They still want to have slash protection because it counts as standard protection, and that is what the light damage does. It is standard damage. So you want to protect yourself from that, but still have at least 2 to 3 sapphires because you don't want to get annihilated by those arcane pools that pop up or the volcanoes. So you can see after I had just intercepted the orb, I actually run to this specific ghost because what's going to happen is they are actually going to go to the opposite end. Just to make it a lot easier, so that way when they stack on Thorpe over there, they're also stacked on top of the archer. And I just stay here to kill this ghost, and I can Leeching Flurry off of this ghost as well. Just to make sure I keep my health up. I accidentally hit a riposte, but I don't know why. So that mechanic that you had just seen him do, like a little shockwave, right here, this thing right here, if a ghost is up, like if my ghost is up still, and this had just hit my ghost, it would actually end up spawning a mob. So since my ghost was dead, it's not going to spawn the mob. Now, every single ghost spawns a specific mob. So the one on me will always spawn the shield bearer. The one all the way over there on the right side of the door is going to always spawn the jester. And then the one that's on my character's right side is always going to spawn Dahut, which is the other boss that we just fought. And the one on the left side over here will always spawn the archer. The one all the way over in that corner is always going to spawn the swordsman. And then that one is always going to spawn the halberd. Another pretty good idea to keep in mind that you could do is run Mortal Aggression because you can heal from that. So as you can see, he stole from me, and when he steals from you, you are going to still take quite a lot of damage. As you can see, I'm ticking still. I had 10 stacks, and when you have 10 stacks, you're taking a lot of damage. But when he steals from you, you're going to be rooted for 10 seconds as well, which is why I couldn't run here quick enough to come and help DPS. So as you can see, it's a random target. He goes straight to Med because Med is the furthest one away. And then he goes back to the tank. Which realistically we should just all stay on Thorpe. We shouldn't be running like that. And we just keep DPSing, and then he's going to end up phasing again. I believe he's going to go in the middle, or not. Okay, so he's doing the stealing mechanic. And all you got to do is just, as the DPS, make sure when it gets close to you, just roll back into it just in case. Because I've had it to where it would just like kind of skip past me and go straight to him. So now Thorpe goes into the middle and he's going to do a different mechanic. It might be the shadow mechanic, or, well, I guess he got phased actually. Yeah, so normally he would do the shadow mechanic, but he ended up getting stunned or staggered out of it. And since he jumped over to me, I just ran away just so that way when he does steal from me, I'm not too close to him, so he steals the sword. This ghost right there actually blew up and Thorpe jumped at me. So I didn't realize that this ghost had 4 shards on him. So when the ghosts have 4 shards on top of their head, they're going to end up blowing up. And I didn't notice that the ghost was even right here. I should have been like in the corner so I could see him. But because I turned around to shoot, I also got jumped on by Thorpe. Because I would have survived the explosion, but I didn't survive the Thorpe jump. So since I ended up going down, the sword buff is going to end up resetting and going into the relic. Since I don't have the debuff, I just go ahead and run straight to Thorpe to help DPS. And then get out, and you can see right there the sword buff is inside the relic again because I ended up going down. So since it's there, Med is going to be ready to actually end up taking it. But you still want to make sure you do have somebody on the ghost. So Med is he's basically going to call out if a ghost is at 2 or 3 shards. But still, it's good to have everyone just turn and kill any ghost that they see. And then he's going to summon the Jester right here. And he's stealing from Med. So like pretty much the main mechanics is going to come down to alternating the light bearers with each other and the ghosts. So during the shadow phase right here, it's important to kill every single different ghost because one of the ghosts or 2 of the ghosts are going to be feeding him souls. And when they're feeding him souls, he's going to just get a big buff. Well, I don't think it's a big buff. I'm pretty sure it was like, I think all the ghosts actually end up detonating. I don't remember exactly what it was. But they're going to be feeding him the soul. And you'll be able to tell which one it is because they're going to have their hands facing towards him. Like as if they're actually doing a Kamehameha type of skill on them. But that generally only happens during the shadow phase. So during that phase, just have everyone go to a different ghost. So it's good to designate a player to each ghost. As you can see, he sent those things out, so it should have technically spawned out Dahut where I was aiming at, but instead it just only spawned in the shield bearer. And that ghost was blowing up because it was at 4 shards. And then you have the ring around the rosy mechanic, the same mechanic you see at like Ifrit, or you'll see at the Winter Runeforge. Really, it's nothing crazy. It's a pretty big and slow beam, so you can just avoid that completely. So you have another Shadow Realm, and when you have this, just kill any ghost that is looking at the or doing the feeding souls mechanic. Obviously, if you have a ghost near you, you could always just kill it as well. And then I decided to maybe get the enemies, or get the ghost health down pretty low rather than killing them instantly. And then the clown or the jester spawns in, and everybody needs to basically jump to the jester. And then, as you can see, he still does the same mechanics where he's going to say, what was the exact words again? I don't remember. Well, I guess he doesn't actually say. I'm pretty sure he still says the line, but I didn't see the subtitles for it. But when you hear it, he's going to teleport to the furthest person, so just be prepared to block. And then he does the ring around the rosy again. And I just wanted to be sure that all the ghosts were taken care of just in case, because I didn't want them to spawn any enemies at this low of a health phase. And I believe the archer just spawned in as well. Yeah, the archer also had just now spawned in. And so did the jester. And then we also have shadow. So at the last 20%, just keep this in mind. At the last 20% of the health, of Thorpe's health, all the mechanics start to actually ramp up in speed. It's not that his mechanics get harder, but his mechanics just increase in speed. So mobs will start spawning more, ghosts will start generating their shards faster, and then yeah, he'll just start just doing a lot of things a lot more often. And then I ended up dying because that ghost wasn't killed, and that mechanic right there, you're gonna see it in a second. I'll actually pause it right here soon, because I noticed this at the last second. So right here, those little souls right there, or not little, those big gray souls that he shoots out, right here. You need to make sure you kill any of the ghosts that this is going to. You gotta kill the ghost, not like, you wouldn't kill them right now, but you would kill them before this thing reaches them. Because if it reaches them, then they're going to detonate. You can also iframe the detonate, but I was in the middle of shooting the ghost to try to kill it rather than trying to just dodge it. And then he detonates, and I died, unfortunately. But good thing Aegis put in the spectating option. So, if you are one of the light bearers, you do need to make sure you communicate with your team that somebody needs to also alternate the light bearer role with the other one. And with all this, you can also still inspect and watch everybody's back and just let them know what mechanics are happening. Even if you're the shot caller, you can still do this because you can see everything happening. But again, pretty much the mechanics for Thorpe is the same all around. Nothing changes, everything just ramps up in speed. So all the mechanics, literally from the start of this fight towards the end, it's all the same. It's just pretty much having to stay alive and doing the mechanics from the start to the end. Obviously, there might be some crazy mechanics, not mechanics, crazy tech that people can eventually cook up. But again, this is pretty much just to show everybody all the mechanics of every single boss, explain what they do, and explain how we pretty much went about doing all of them. And we're going to watch this. So the ghost actually dies right there because they kill it as soon as the gray orb reaches it. And those mobs back there are spawning. So as they're DPSing, I'm spectating and just letting them know what mobs are spawning. And I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty upset that I died because this section looked, or this last 20%, even though it was very hectic and it was very fast compared to the first like 80%, it looked like it was a lot of fun. Which honestly, the entire raid itself was a ton of fun. But yeah, honestly, I don't really think I need to continue with this, but because again, there's no DPS phase, there's nothing at the end of his last health bar. It's just a rinse and repeat mechanics. Everything spawns faster, and yeah, the only main things you just gotta watch out for, or again, the main roles that you need to make sure you have in this fight is going to be light bearers. They need to be able to alternate and just communicate with each other. Obviously, at a certain point, you won't really need to communicate. You'll just know if one person has the orb, then the other person will. We'll just need to take it. And so there's another thing that I want to mention is there's a visual bug right now where it's going to show that, for example, if I have the light bearer sword on my head and he steals it from me, and then the other person takes or intercepts, sometimes the sword is still going to be on my head, but I don't have it anymore. It's actually on the new person. But I will still get rooted when he does do the stealing mechanic. So just keep that in mind as well. You will still get the rooted mechanic and everything, but you won't have the yellow orb. But yeah, we ended up killing all three bosses. This is the third day that we ended up doing this attempt on, and it was a very, very, very fun raid. A lot better than Hive of Gorgon. Unfortunately, the end rewards is not that great. The gear and the weapons are pretty bad. But yeah, like this entire raid was by far one of the best ones that we've ever done. Um, and I hope AGS keeps releasing more content like this because we do need more raid content, difficult content like this, I feel like, but with probably better incentive because unfortunately at the end you also don't get umbral shards, and I'm hoping that this is just a bug because one of our guys, he wasn't capped out on umbral shards this week and he got nothing. And in Hive of Gorgon, you get 750 for a completion, and Hive is obviously a lot easier than this raid. Um, and there's no title, no achievement, no nothing. So really, you're just doing this raid just to have completed it once or twice or however many times, or just doing it for fun. But the first boss, the Jesters, is definitely worth farming. So if you have gotten the Jester down packed, it's 100% worth farming the Jester just to get your jewelry because the Enraged Ring is very, very, very good. But hopefully this video helped you guys out. If it did, go ahead and leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know down in the comment section as well, and I will try my best to help you guys out. You can also look at my YouTube stuff, I guess. I do try to post more about specific games that I'm playing. Obviously, I have games that's for everything else, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully, this helped you guys out, and peace.